That's all I ask.
Her voice broke the silence like a fragile blade, trembling with desperation, yet carrying the weight of years. One night, that's all I ask. The words hung in the air, heavy with longing, heavy with sorrow, heavy with the ache of a decade spent alone. She had endured cold nights without warmth, exile without comfort, rejection without end. Her people had cast her aside, her crown stripped, her heart left to freeze in solitude. And now, after 10 years of silence, she whispered to me, a human, her plea for something her world had denied her. I stood frozen, torn between fear and compassion. Her alien eyes shimmered with vulnerability, her scars visible even in the dim light. She expected me to recoil, to laugh, to dismiss her as her people had done. Yet I did not. I listened, my silence heavier than law, my heart aching with the truth of her words. She had asked not for eternity, not for devotion, not for a kingdom. She had asked for one night, a single moment of warmth after years of cold. Her plea was not weakness, it was survival. She had endured rejection, endured loneliness, endured the cruelty of tradition. And now, she stood before me, trembling, vulnerable, desperate for something her people had denied her. I felt the weight of her scars, the depth of her sorrow, the strength of her endurance. Where others saw shame, I saw resilience. Where others saw exile, I saw courage. Where others saw ugliness, I saw beauty. She whispered again, softer this time, her voice breaking. One night, that's all I ask. The words struck me harder than any blade, harder than any decree. They revealed not just her longing, but her truth. She wanted warmth, wanted connection, wanted love. She wanted to be seen, to be chosen, to be held. And in that moment, I understood. Humans were not built to ignore such pleas. We were built to feel, to risk, to love beyond reason. I stepped closer, my voice steady, my presence unyielding. Then let me give you that night. Her eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face. No one had ever answered her plea. No one had ever offered her warmth. No one had ever chosen her. She trembled, her breath caught, her heart racing. She whispered, "You cannot mean it." I answered simply, "I do." The silence between us grew heavy, filled with unspoken truths, filled with forbidden longing. She studied me, her gaze piercing, her silence louder than any decree. She had expected rejection, expected cruelty, expected abandonment. Yet here was a human who did not flinch, who did not retreat, who did not mock her plea. I had chosen to listen, chosen to answer, chosen to give her what she had longed for. Her heart trembled, caught between fear and hope. She had lived a decade in exile, a decade of cold nights, a decade of silence. Yet now, she felt something she had never dared to imagine, warmth. She whispered again, her voice fragile. "Why would you do this?" I answered softly, "Because you matter." The word struck her harder than any decree, harder than any rejection. She stared at me, disbelief warring with hope, her silence speaking louder than her words. She turned away, her crown heavy, her scars visible, her heart trembling. Yet she did not retreat. She stood still, her breath uneven, her soul awakening. She realized that perhaps humans were different, that perhaps humans saw beyond scars, beyond exile, beyond rejection. She realized that perhaps humans carried something her people did not. Emotion unbound, love unmeasured, courage born not of logic but of heart. I watched her, my chest aching, my soul breaking, yet my eyes remained steady. I had spoken my truth, and though her plea had shattered me, I would not regret it. She had asked for one night, and I had answered. She had whispered her longing, and I had listened. She had revealed her vulnerability, and I had chosen her. The silence lingered, heavy, eternal, unforgettable. She whispered once more, her voice trembling. "One night, that's all I ask." I answered, my voice steady, my words eternal. "Then let me give you forever." She had asked for one night, and though I had agreed, Her silence afterward was heavy, filled with suspicion and doubt. She tested me with sharp words, her voice cold, her eyes piercing, as if daring me to prove that my answer had not been born of pity. She questioned why humans spoke of love so easily, why we risked our hearts when logic proved it futile. I did not argue with her. I simply stayed, my presence steady, my warmth unshaken. My laughter unsettled her. My unpredictability confused her. My refusal to retreat intrigued her. She had lived a decade surrounded by rejection, every glance a reminder of exile, every word a wound. Yet now she found herself facing a human who did not flinch, who did not mock, who did not abandon. Her fascination grew despite herself. She studied me as though I were a puzzle she could not solve. She watched the way my emotions shifted, the way my voice carried sincerity, the way my eyes lingered on her scars without shame. She had been taught that scars were weakness, that exile was failure, that longing was forbidden. Yet I spoke of her scars as proof of survival, marks of strength, signs of resilience. She froze, her heart twisting, convinced I was mocking her. No one had ever spoken of her scars as anything but disgrace. She withdrew, her silence heavy, her suspicion sharp. She believed my promise of one night had been a cruel fantasy, a joke meant to remind her of what she could never have. But when danger struck, it was not words that proved me true, but actions. Shadows moved against her, blades drawn, voices whispering rebellion. She braced herself for betrayal, certain I would abandon her. Yet I did not. I stepped forward, shielding her with my body, risking myself without hesitation. My hands were steady as I fought, my voice calm as I reassured her. When the threat was gone, I knelt beside her, tending to her wounds with care. My touch was gentle, my eyes filled with concern. She stared at me, disbelief warring with hope, her silence louder than any decree. Her defenses cracked. The bitterness she had carried for so long began to dissolve. She realized that suspicion had been born from loneliness, from the ache of never being chosen. And now, here was a human who had chosen her instinctively, who stayed even when she tried to drive him away, who risked himself without hesitation. She whispered, her voice trembling, "Why do you keep doing this?" I answered simply, "Because you matter." The words struck her harder than any blade, harder than any insult. She stared at me, her eyes wide, her heart racing, her silence speaking louder than her words. She began to watch me differently. My laughter no longer felt mocking. It felt alive. My unpredictability no longer frightened her. It fascinated her. She found herself drawn to my warmth, to the way I spoke without calculation, to the way I touched her hand without hesitation. She realized that humans carried something her people did not: emotion unbound, love unmeasured, courage born not of logic but of heart. The tension between us grew, subtle yet undeniable. She caught herself staring at me, her breath quickening when my eyes met hers. I spoke of her beauty, not in the way her people defined it, but in the way I saw her strength, her resilience, her vulnerability. She wanted to deny it, wanted to cling to the laws that protected her, but she could not. My words seeped into her, breaking down walls she had built over years of rejection. One night, she whispered, her voice fragile yet certain, "You confuse me, human, but I cannot stop wanting you." I smiled, not mocking, not cruel, but warm. "Then let me keep confusing you." The words carried no logic, no calculation, but they carried something far greater: emotion. She felt her heart soften, her suspicion dissolve, her loneliness replaced by something she had never dared to imagine: hope. She realized that perhaps confusion was not something to fear. Perhaps it was the beginning of something she had longed for but never believed possible. She had been bound by law, by duty, by rejection, but now she found herself chosen, not by force, not by pity, but by a human who saw her as more than her scars, more than her exile, more than her plea for one night. She felt her world shift, her heart open, her soul awaken. The alien woman understood, then, that humans were different. They were unpredictable, brave, emotional. They saw beauty where others saw flaws, strength where others saw weakness. And in that difference, she found herself falling not into despair, not into denial, but into love. The council's decree was final, their voices cold and unyielding, demanding that she remain in exile, demanding that the bond between us be severed before it could take root. They spoke of law, of tradition, of impossibility, insisting that a human could never stand beside her, that my promise of warmth was nothing but defiance. She stood silent, her crown heavy, her scars visible, her heart trembling between fear and longing. For a moment, she considered surrender, considered retreating into the safety of obedience. But before she could speak, I stepped forward, my voice steady, my presence unyielding. I declared that my love was not mistake, not fantasy, not weakness. I told them that beauty was not theirs to define, that scars were not shame but survival, that she was more than their mockery, more than their law, more than their fear. The chamber erupted, disbelief echoing against crystalline walls. They pressed harder, their logic unrelenting, their tradition unshaken. Yet I did not falter. I spoke of humanity, of emotion, of courage. I told them that humans did not measure worth in crowns or scars, but in the heart that endured, in the soul that refused to break. I told them that she had been bound by duty, mocked by her people, denied love, but to me she was radiant, powerful, unforgettable. My words carried no calculation, no strategy, but they carried something greater, truth born of love. She stared at me, her eyes wide, her breath caught. No one had ever spoken for her. No one had ever defied the council for her. No one had ever risked themselves to claim her. She felt her world shift, her armor crack, her soul awaken. The bitterness that had haunted her dissolved, replaced by devotion, by hope, by the certainty that she was no longer alone. She realized that humans were different, that they saw beyond scars, beyond rejection, beyond fear. They saw with their hearts, and in that vision, she was not mocked, not discarded, not forbidden. She was chosen. The council demanded silence, demanded obedience, demanded that I step back. But she no longer heard them. All that mattered was the man before her, the human who had risked everything to stand beside her. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but strong. "You confuse me, human," she whispered, "but you have given me something I never believed I could have." I met her gaze, my eyes unwavering, my presence steady. "Then let me keep giving it to you." The chamber fell silent, the weight of her words echoing through the hall. She reached for my hand, her fingers trembling, her scars visible, her vulnerability laid bare. I took her hand without hesitation, my grip firm yet gentle, a promise without words. The council gasped, their disbelief shattered by the undeniable truth before them. She was no longer the queen bound by law, no longer the ruler silenced by tradition. She was a woman who had chosen, and she had chosen me. Her heart melted, her soul ignited, her world forever changed. She whispered, her voice soft but powerful, "You whispered you wished to give me one night. I asked for that night. But now, I rebuild my world with you." My answer was simple, my voice steady, my words unforgettable. "And I will never let you go." The crystalline walls shimmered, the silence heavy, the moment eternal. She had been bound by duty, mocked by her people, denied love. But now, she was chosen, loved, cherished. The human had shown her that beauty was not in perfection, not in fear, not in cruelty, but in courage, in vulnerability, in love. And in that truth, she found herself reborn.